Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're looking at the 2016 Honda Pilot. It's been completely redesigned for this year from the ground up. And that's always a big risk when you're an automaker that has a top 5 selling vehicle in its class. And that's what this is. This is a vehicle that competes with the Ford Explorer, the Toyota Highlander, and the Nissan Pathfinder, just to name a few. And so we're going to take a look at it, take it for a good drive town and country, and see what it's all about. The all-new 2016 Honda Pilot is dramatically more stylish than last year's more squared-off and boxy design, with sexier creases and lines, more artful details, and in general, a less dowdy appearance. It's much closer to the family styling DNA we see in sedans like the Accord and the Civic. It looks larger too because it is. The 2016 Honda Pilot is stretched 3 inches longer at 191 inches, gets a 2-inch longer wheelbase at 111, yet has an overall height that's an inch lower. This contributes to its more slender appearance overall, but also to better aerodynamics and therefore better fuel economy. Our Elite all-wheel drive tester features upgraded exterior items like its painted and machine-finished 20-inch wheels. Up front on the Elite, it also has signature LED headlamps with daytime running lights and auto on-off functionality. The interior in ours, with second-row captain's chair, seats 2 passengers up front, 2 in the second row, and up to 3 in the third row for a total of 7. All other models have seating for up to 8. The design of ours with its black leather and interior trims was clean and businesslike, if not a bit austere in its character. With every option available, it had heated and ventilated front power seats for both the passenger and the driver's seat getting memory settings. Also part of the Elite trim grade was dual sunroofs, the front panel openable. This interior is very well done when it comes to fit and finish and when it comes to quality of materials, but when it comes to ergonomics and what that is, ergonomics, that means the design of the controls and how easy everything is to use. There are a few things I've got to chew on here, and I'm going to start with this push button transmission selector. Instead of a lever like the 6-speed has, the 9-speed has this, and it just isn't intuitive at all. You have to look down and see which indicator light is lighting up so that you can see what gear you're in. And there's a little bit of a delay when you actually put it into a gear. It doesn't happen right away. And the problem with it is you have to stop what you're doing and look at it to see what gear you're in, to see what's lighting up. And you can also look at the instrument cluster up here, but how it differs from a shift lever is a shift lever, once you get to know your car, you can just put it into gear and you can feel by how many clicks. You'll know exactly what gear it's in. You don't even need to look at it. It becomes second nature. This is something that you've just got to sort of look at it and double check. And it's just one more step that you have to go through where they've actually tried to impress us with convenience and effortlessness. It's actually more work. And the same goes for this. We've got a touch-sensitive infotainment system here. You'll note there's no knobs on it. There's no buttons on it. So there's not a volume knob. There's not a tuning knob. So if you're adjusting your volume, you have this touch-sensitive device here. You either have to tap up here or you have to slide here. It would be so much nicer if there was a knob because you wouldn't have to look at it and really keep a close eye on it when you're actually trying to make adjustments. See how much work that is when a quick swipe of a knob would have done? And you don't even have to look at a knob. You can reach over there, feel it, touch it, and you're done. Now, yes, you also have the steering wheel you can do, but it's the same way. It's just one extra thing. The infotainment system itself offers full connectivity capabilities wired or via Bluetooth and offers reasonably good sound quality. Its user interface is just somewhat frustrating to use on the go and has a very steep learning curve as it's just not that intuitive. At least the driver interface is clear and concise with an instrument cluster very easy to read. The center display information center is easy to navigate as well via controls on the steering wheel, which is manually adjustable for tilt and telescope. There are quite a few nice things about this Pilot if you're sitting in the interior, and if you're in the second row, the Elite's got it all, man. It's got the entertainment system up here, and down below it's got the command center. This thing has got everything. It's got USB ports, it's got an HDMI input, it's got RCA jacks for a VCR. Well, probably a CD player or a game console. I don't think anyone's carrying a VCR around with them anymore. But it's also got headphone inputs, and then of course it comes with wireless headphones. So it's got everything for this big screen up here. And then of course you've also got a remote that comes out of there that you can operate this thing either right here on the console, or it can pop out and you can hand it to the kids back there. It's just very cool. It's a lot of stuff, and I'm probably glossing over a ton of features that it has that Honda would love me to talk about, but it is a very comprehensive system, and I'll just leave it at that. Now, these are the captain's chairs, which means you can pass through here in the center, and these also fold down flat, and they have a one-touch slide up to let you get into the rear seat, which I'll show you here in a minute. The thing is, they do sit just a little bit low, and I will point that out here. My knees feel a little bit high and they're a little bit hard, so I'm not really sure they're going to be comfortable for long trips, at least for adults. Now, they do have an adjustment here for seat back recline, although it's only got 2 different positions. It's not as comprehensive as some. But the good news is whoever's sitting back here, you're going to have plenty of room. There's good leg room here, plenty of headroom, even with this big, huge sunroof that's up here. And usually sunroofs take some space out of your headroom, so nothing being missed here. So this is a little demonstration on getting into the 3rd row. Reach down here. It's a one-touch 2nd row slide. That's totally cool. Now, getting into the doorway is not hard. Now I'm getting in here. All right. That looked pretty easy, and it was. Now, there are a couple things I want to show you back here. The 2nd row seats slide. Now, I don't have these all the way back. There is one more cog they can come back. So if they did, they'd be right up against my knees, but they're most of the way back. And I point that out because most 3-row SUVs, I can't do this, and there's plenty of room back here, more so than most. And the other thing is, down underneath the back of the seat, there's an area to put your feet. They're actually up off the floor a little bit, so if you are back here, you can actually slide your feet under that 2nd row a little bit and give yourself some comfort. I like that. Folding down the 3rd row can be easily done in a 60-40 split. The 2nd row captain's chairs fold flat as well for an entirely flat cargo area. The seats all fold down very easily with one pull or push for each. Under the rear cargo floor is a covered storage area for incidentals, or you can lower the top panel to create a deeper load well. Overall, the interior has an impeccable fit and finish with the kind of material quality that I've always come to expect from Honda, the ergonomic complaints being some of the only. It earns 4 of 5 stars. When it comes to technologies, high marks are given to what does work well, like the driver and crash prevention aids, which allow multiple options for customizing, including an off switch. I love that. Technologies, therefore, earn 4 of 5 stars. What's under the hood of the 2016 Pilot is the latest generation of Honda's smooth and silky 3.5-liter V6, good for 280 horsepower. Now featuring standard direct injection and cylinder deactivation technologies, it can operate on fewer cylinders to save fuel when the extra power isn't needed. After spending some time behind the wheel with this, some of my first observations are this engine, it's very smooth and refined, its power is more than adequate. When it comes to horsepower, it's mid-pack, which means some of its competitors have less and some of them have more. It's plenty. Now, the main thing about this particular vehicle being that it's the Elite is it has the 9-speed automatic transmission. If you get the LX or the EX, EXL, they're going to come with a 6-speed. If you get the Touring or the Elite, it comes with the 9-speed. Now, as we already talked about with the interior, I would probably like the 6-speed better just sitting here because it has a standard gear lever. But the other thing is this 9-speed automatic transmission just isn't that well behaved. Its shifting behavior is rather erratic, and because of the way it's designed, the gear shifts in some gears feel different than the gear shifts in other gears. It's just a design flaw that they have because a lot of automakers use this transmission. I've driven it in a lot of different brands. It has the same behaviors in all the different vehicles that I've driven it in. And it's just unfortunate because this is a very well put together vehicle in most respects. And this transmission really just seems out of place here because it's just not as refined and well buttoned down as the rest of this vehicle is. Because the new 9-speed transmission can behave quite different than the 6-speed automatic, I highly suggest you drive them both if you're planning to buy a Pilot, and make sure you get a feel for them. The 9-speed won't bother everyone, I just tend to be a bit picky in the area of powertrain behaviors. One thing I want to point out is this has an engine start-stop system to save fuel, and a lot of cars are getting this now. And basically what happens is when you come to a stop, the engine shuts off, and when you lift off the brake and roll into the throttle again, the engine starts back up. It's getting to be pretty commonplace, but one thing about this system that isn't quite sitting well with me is the fact that it defaults to on every time you start the vehicle. There's no way to permanently disable it. So if it's a system that drives you crazy, it's just something you have to live with, or remember to turn it off every time you get in the car, and that's a little bit annoying in my opinion. While I did find the engine auto start-stop system annoying, as well as its 9-speed automatic transmission's behavior, both are likely strong contributors to the excellent fuel economy it achieves. The EPA rates it at 19 mpg city, 26 mpg highway, and 22 mpg combined. And the thing is, I achieved 24 mpg combined with it in my week of testing, which is well above what most competitors we have tested in the last year or so got, and more than promised by the EPA. In such, the powertrain earns 4 or 5 stars. When it comes to ride and handling, one thing I've really picked up on is that this is relatively softly sprung. In fact, it actually has a bit of a floating sensation that one used to sort of associate with American cars back in the 70s and 80s. And it's not really pronounced, but when you're on neighborhood streets or out on the highway, you do sort of sense a little bit of a float going on, especially in the front suspension. And that doesn't translate to a chassis that feels rubbery or imprecise. It's just rather softly sprung. One thing I always love to do when I have a crossover SUV is bring it out here onto the desert washboard road, because this is the kind of surface that, while it's not true off-roading, it can rattle even the best of the SUVs and crossovers right down to their bolts and their interior trim fasteners. And so what I'm finding out here is that the chassis itself is actually very well composed. I'm not getting any crashes or thumps or rattling or even shuddering in the suspension, and the steering, no kickback whatsoever. But what I am getting is a little bit more rattling and resonance in the interior trims here than I'd like. In fact, it's actually quite noisy in here. Most of the noise I'm getting is the interior trims, the door panels, the dash, the headliner. You can hear them all making a little bit of noise here and there as I go over this ribbed surface. The chassis the Pilot felt of quality overall, even when the structure and trim got a bit rattled on the rougher roads. The soft nature of its tuning, however, does give the impression that at times it isn't as solid as it really is. Thus, we rate it at 4 or 5 stars. It is a solid structure though, as in the IIHS crash testing it scored good ratings across the board on all of their tests, even the brutal small overlap crash. This, combined with its available superior crash prevention systems, earned it an IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus honor. The last tangible measure I take on every vehicle I test is quality feel, and here I was surprised that the Honda Pilot didn't measure as high as most Hondas I've tested. In addition to rattles and creaks with the interior trims, there were some minor body panel misaligns I find very out of character for the brand. This put overall quality feel at 4 or 5 stars. Well folks, rounding it up for the Honda Pilot, I was pretty impressed with a number of its characteristics, and so if we start with the specs here, one of them was the fuel economy. 24 mpg for a V6 all-wheel drive 3-row crossover SUV. That is very good, because a lot of its competitors, they push you into these small turbocharged engines to try to get to that figure, and many of them don't even reach it. So I thought that was pretty impressive. Now, let's look at the price. $47,000. This is a fully loaded Elite. It would be very hard to spend more money on this vehicle unless you went to the dealer and started asking for accessories there. And in fairness, many of its competitors, you can spend that much money and more in some cases. But at this price, I think it is missing a few features. Some of the SUVs out there, they're offering 360-degree view cameras. That's a big deal. Even in the Honda showroom, Accord, the Civic, you can get the lane watch feature, which shows you the right lane when you hit that blinker up there on the screen. That's a big deal, and it's actually missing here. I thought that was a strange omission, but it has a lot of features for the money still. So overall, for value, I give it 4 stars. When you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at a total of 4 stars for the review. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. Oh, more mud. I love mud. Woo! Well, folks, if you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link right there on our screen and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We test drive 1, sometimes 2 vehicles every week, plus we have a new video almost every single day. There's always something new. So stay tuned.